Welcome to medieval Britain, where your first memory isn't of your mother's lullaby or a warm hearth. It's the taste of dirt because you fell face first into a dung pile trying to chase a half-dead chicken. Congratulations! You were born into the glorious career of medieval farming, which is less about growing food and more about surviving long enough to regret it. Let's set the stage properly. Picture it, a gray sky that presses down on your little hamlet like a woolen cloak soaked in cold stew. You wake up not to bird song or sunshine, but to the sound of coughing, wet, phlegmy, endless coughing, and the gentle snoring of the family pig. Not metaphorically, the actual pig. He lives with you, in your house. And no, your house isn't some quaint cottage with roses around the door. It's a single room made of timber and wattle, where smoke from the central fire pit barely escapes through a hole in the roof. Everyone sleeps on straw, and that includes the fleas, lice, and occasional rat. Your name doesn't matter. Most folks won't live long enough to be remembered anyway. You are a peasant, a villain, a serf, born to toil, born to kneel, born to break your back for someone who sees you as a tool more than a person. Your destiny is not written in the stars. It's written in mud, in sweat, in calluses, and in blood. From the moment you can walk, you are put to work, pulling weeds, scaring birds, carrying water from the stream that smells faintly of rot. There's no school unless you count learning how to shovel manure or being taught not to step in the wrong place when the pigs are loose. Literacy is for monks. Numbers are for tax collectors. You just count the days until the next planting, the next harvest, the next flogging. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is whatever gruel hasn't gone sour. Maybe you get to gnaw on last week's crust of bread that's gone so hard it could double as a weapon. Butter? Dream on. Milk? That's for the Lord's table. Sugar? You've heard of it, never tasted it. Honey, perhaps, if someone risks the bees and survives. And then, the fields. The fields stretch endlessly, muddy in the spring, cracked in the summer, frozen in the winter. Your wooden plow is pulled by a beast barely stronger than you. If you're lucky, you get an ox. If you're unlucky, it's you and your brothers pulling the plow like beasts yourselves. The soil is stubborn, riddled with rocks, and cursed with centuries of poor stewardship. You sow seeds like prayers and harvest disappointment. You are wet all the time, even in your sleep. Your clothes, rough wool tunics and leather shoes, stay damp for months. Your hands are blistered, your feet are cracked, and your spine creaks like a rotted beam every time you stand up. There is no rest. There is only sleep. And even then, you dream of labor. By midday, you are already drained. Your stomach gnaws at itself. You eat a meal of pottage, a sludgy soup of lentils, peas, sometimes with wild herbs if your wife was lucky enough not to mistake poison hemlock again. Bread if it was baked before the grain ran out. Ale if the barley was spared by the rats. Afternoons bring more of the same. Plowing, sowing, reaping, shoveling, hauling, fixing roofs, mending fences, chasing sheep, digging ditches, sweating, and shivering. Always shivering. The damp air clings to your bones like guilt. And the animals. Dear God, the animals. The cows with their vacant stares and explosive bowels. The chickens that peck at everything. The goats that seem to take pleasure in chaos. You tend to them all, not because you love them, but because you must. Because their survival is your survival. Evenings don't bring relief, just darkness and chores under the moonlight. You try not to trip on uneven floors or startle the pig. Dinner is much like breakfast and lunch, brown, bland, and barely enough. Sometimes your children go to sleep crying from hunger. Sometimes they don't even cry. They just stare. This is the daily grind, the ceaseless churn of medieval survival, and it continues day after day, year after year, until something worse shows up. Spoiler alert, something always does. And then it happens. A horn, a shout, the unmistakable thrum of panic in the air. You know before you even see them, Vikings. They come like thunder on the sea. Longboats slicing through the mist, sails flapping like dark wings. They look like demons, painted faces, snarling blades, eyes that gleam with bloodlust and boredom. They land at dawn, just as you were hoping to get one full day of plowing without catastrophe. Tough luck. You run, not out of cowardice, but because staying means death. You've seen what they do. Men gutted in front of their families, women dragged screaming, children tossed aside like broken tools. They set fire to your home without a second thought. Bartholomew the pig squeals as he bolts into the forest. You don't follow. You dive into the nearest ditch and cover yourself in mud and prayers. You wait, you listen, screams, then silence. The smell of smoke, the buzz of flies already arriving to feast. By nightfall, the raid is over. What's left of your village is a skeleton. Blackened beams where homes stood, scorched fields, blood in the well. Your cousin's wife is missing. So is half your barley. The Lord is dead, the reeve too. The church, burnt to the ground. The priest's body nailed to the door. And just when you think the worst is over, you get a new lord, a foreign one. His name is unpronounceable, and his taxes are legendary. You now owe more grain, more livestock, more labor, and the penalty for failure isn't just a beating. It's hanging, or branding, or being locked in a cage and left to rot. You start to miss the old misery, the devil you knew. But there's no time for nostalgia. You must rebuild, replant, reinforce. The Viking threat hasn't vanished. It's just found other villages to ruin. Your fear becomes a constant hum beneath your skin. Every breeze that rustles the trees makes you flinch. Every horn echoing from afar makes you drop to your knees. You are not living, you are enduring. The seasons blur. The land, once familiar, becomes a stranger. You till it, feed it, bleed into it, and still it betrays you. Too much rain and everything rots. Too little, and the sun cracks it like dry bread. Either way, your harvest fails and famine stalks the village like a gaunt specter. You tighten your belt, then again, until the leather wraps your ribs like a noose. And then comes the sickness. Not the everyday sniffles or fevers, not the boils from dirty water or the infections from stepping on a rusted nail. This is the great pestilence, the Black Death. It rolls in from the coast like a tide of corpses. One day your neighbor sneezes, the next he's vomiting black blood. 2 days later he's a lump in a mass grave, barely covered. It moves fast, fast enough that the gravediggers die before they finish their work. You see children collapse mid-step, mothers cough into blankets held by their babies. You pray, but even the priest wears a mask of linen and avoids you like a leper. And the lepers, God help them, driven into the woods, hunted like animals. You hear them at night, wailing in the dark, covered in sores and abandoned by heaven and earth. The church, once a place of solace, becomes a house of fear. Latin chants echo like curses. Incense chokes the air, failing to hide the stench of death. The priest says it's God's wrath. You begin to believe it, but you keep farming, even as the village empties, even as your sister buries her own child, even as you dig a grave for your wife and find no tears left, because the Lord still demands his share. And then, war, again. Because some prince thinks his cousin insulted him, because a king dies without a clear heir, because France exists. The reasons don't matter. What matters is that you're given a sword you don't know how to use, a banner you don't recognize, and orders to march to your death. You leave your half-plowed field behind. You kiss your surviving children, if any. You promise to return, knowing full well you won't. You travel for days, sleep in ditches, eat moldy biscuits, and get shouted at in 3 different dialects. And then the battle. Chaos, screams, mud slick with blood. A knight gallops past, armored like a god, swinging a sword that cost more than your entire village is worth. You barely get your spear up before an arrow finds your friend's throat. When the battle ends, if you're still alive, you're broken, inside and out. You return to your village with a limp, a haunted stare, and nothing else. You try to resume life, but life has moved on. or rather decayed. Your house, looted. Your family, gone. Your pig, stew. You start over, again. And as you age, the aches deepen. Your bones grind. Your breath shortens. Your vision dims. But you're still expected to work. There's no retirement, just slowing down enough that no one notices when you stop. Your children grow if they survive. They take your place in the fields, the taxes, the terror. You watch your son break his back in the same spot you did. You watch your daughter get married off at 14, hoping her husband doesn't beat her too much. One winter, the fever comes. You feel it in your chest, your limbs, your soul. You lie on straw, shivering, sweating, hallucinating. A priest comes to read last rites. You can't hear him. You see your wife's face, though she's been dead a decade. You see Bartholomew, then darkness. They bury you in a shallow grave behind the churchyard. No marker, no name, just another forgotten peasant in the soil, and the wheel turns. Another child is born, another pair of hands to work the earth, another soul to suffer. This is not a story of triumph. It's a record of endurance, of misery polished by centuries, of humanity stretched thin by kings, war, weather, and gods that never seem to listen. So the next time you hear someone speak of the simple life of the past, remember the truth. Being a medieval farmer in Britain didn't just suck, it was hell in slow motion. And you lived it with a smile, because you had no other choice.